The Dreshkin fleet came out of fold transit at 2:17 hours on a Thursday morning, and they came in the way that species came in when they had studied their target carefully and had decided that overwhelming presence was more efficient than incremental pressure. 481 ships in a sphere around Earth. The sphere was the part that was meant to be understood immediately, because a sphere communicated something that a line or a wedge formation did not. We have covered every direction. There is nowhere you go that is not through us. The calculation is already complete. The only question is how long you take to accept it. Captain Adis Okonkwo II was 61 years old and had commanded the UEDF heavy cruiser Ardennes named, per family tradition, after the ship her great-grandmother Mara had held together with systems engineering and stubbornness, for 7 years. She was the granddaughter of the original Captain Adis Okonkwo, who had built the acoustic picture of a Reach fleet from an orbital shadow. She was the daughter of Dara Nkosi, who had designed the colony ship architecture. She was the cousin of Dr. Elan Vasquez Osai, who had treated 11 Sarethvel emergencies in 9 hours in a cold derelict. She was, by any reasonable genealogical account, a person who had come from a long line of people who treated impossible situations as operational problems to be worked. She was also, at 2:17 hours on a Thursday, the senior UEDF officer in the Sol system, because Admiral Ferreira was at Relay Station Kappa 7 for a command conference, and because the fold transit arrival had not given anyone enough warning to change that fact. She stood at the tactical display of the Ardennes and looked at 481 Dreshkin warships in a sphere around Earth and said to her operations officer, Lieutenant Commander Priya Nair, "Get me a full sensor picture of the sphere. I want every ship's position, velocity, apparent formation spacing, and intership communication profile." Priya said, "Captain, the communication profile will take." "Start it now," Adis said. "What else do you have?" UEDF Sol Command is on emergency channel. Admiral Ferreira is in transit back from Kappa 7, ETA 14 hours. The compact diplomatic channel is active. The Dreshkin fleet has not transmitted on any standard compact frequency. Earth's orbital defense grid is at full alert. Lunar installations are active. A pause. The Pelagic fleet has acknowledged the emergence event. "Good," Adis said. "Captain." "The Pelagic fleet acknowledged," Adis said. "What is their current readiness status?" Priya understood the question. The Pelagic fleet's readiness status was, in the sense that a readiness status described a fleet currently in its operational positions throughout the Sol system's deep field, exactly what it had been for the past 6 years, since Tomas Reyes' successor, a quiet woman named Admiral Chen Vasquez, who had served under Reyes for a decade and had kept everything he built and extended it, had decided that the Pelagic fleet did not have a peacetime configuration and a wartime configuration. It had one configuration, ready. "Pelagic fleet is at standard operational posture," Priya said. 47 vessels confirmed. Admiral Chen Vasquez is on secure channel. "Put her through." Admiral Sulin Chen Vasquez's voice was calm in the way that voices were calm when the person speaking had spent 6 years training for exactly this and was now watching exactly this happen. She said, "Captain Okonkwo, I have the tactical picture. 47 vessels in current positions, full sensor coverage of the sphere's interior approach vectors." "Coverage assessment," Adis said. "The Dreshkin formation has standard intership spacing for a containment sphere of this size," Chen Vasquez said. 481 ships, sphere radius approximately 40,000 kilometers. Intership spacing averages 83 kilometers. There are 17 positions in the sphere's southern ecliptic sector, where the spacing exceeds 120 kilometers. Formation gaps consistent with the approach vectors used in the Kappa 1 transit lane. These were probably not accounted for in their formation planning. A brief pause. "We are in the interior of their formation. They are in ours." Adis said, How much of their interior do we currently hold? With 47 vessels distributed as currently deployed, Chen Vasquez said, we have sensor coverage of approximately 68% of the sphere's interior volume. Weapons coverage is lower. We are not optimally positioned for engagement. We are positioned for observation. Repositioning for full weapons coverage would take. Don't reposition, Adiz said. Observation coverage is what I need. Chen Vasquez said, understood. Adiz looked at the tactical display. 481 ships in a sphere. The sphere was the state. Meant, the sphere said, surrounded. The sphere said, the calculation is complete. The sphere had been built. She could see from the formation analysis already coming in from the sensor teams, by beings who understood geometry and had applied it carefully and were waiting for humanity to understand the geometry. She thought about the geometry. She thought about a sphere with 47 vessels already inside it, already in their positions, already building the sensor picture of every ship in the formation, before the formation had finished emerging from fold transit. She thought about the Dreshkin fleet commander, sitting on their flagship somewhere in that sphere, looking at their tactical display, and seeing Earth and the UEDF's orbital defenses and the lunar installations, and the 481 ships of their own fleet in a containment formation, and not seeing 47 pelagic fleet vessels, because 47 pelagic fleet vessels were specifically designed not to be seen. She thought about what the Dreshkin fleet commander understood about the situation they were in. She thought they think they surrounded us. They don't know we were already here. She opened the UEDF SOL command channel. The duty officer, a young lieutenant whose voice had the specific quality of someone who was managing controlled urgency, said, Captain Okonkwo, we are coordinating with the Compact Diplomatic Division. I need a communication slot, Adiz said. Direct channel to the Dreshkin Fleet Command, standard compact first contact frequency. I need it in the next 15 minutes. A pause. Captain, the Diplomatic Division is not in this system right now and the Dreshkin Fleet is, she said. I am the senior UEDF officer in Sol. I need the channel. Another pause longer. Then, channel will be available in 12 minutes, Captain. She spent the 12 minutes doing 3 things. The first was reading everything in the UEDF's intelligence file on the Dreshkin. The file was 47 pages long and had been compiled over 8 years of indirect contact, observation at range, intercepted communications, commercial interactions through third-party intermediaries, the careful accumulation of information about a species that had been expanding toward the ascending corridor from a different direction, and that the Compact's intelligence division had assessed, 18 months ago, as a medium-term strategic concern. The Dreshkin were not members of the Compact. They had declined contact with Compact diplomatic teams twice. Their expansion pattern was consistent with a species that did not use the Compact's frameworks and that had developed its own approach to encountering new civilizations. Their approach, the file concluded, was the approach she was looking at, overwhelming presence followed by terms. The terms were apparently not unreasonable. The file documented 6 species that had encountered the Dreshkin fleet in this configuration and had accepted integration into Dreshkin commercial and governance frameworks without catastrophic loss of autonomy. The file also documented 2 species that had not accepted the terms, and the subsequent situation of those 2 species was not described in positive terms. The file did not address the pelagic fleet. The Dreshkin's intelligence on humanity did not include the pelagic fleet, because the pelagic fleet was not in any record the Dreshkin would have had access to, and because the Dreshkin had not been in a position to conduct the kind of sustained close-in observation that would have revealed it. The second thing she did was send a message to Lena Vazik's office. Lena was 81 and had nominally retired 3 years ago from active diplomatic service, which meant she attended 3 meetings a week instead of 40, and still kept the same notebook habits, and was still, By any reasonable assessment, the person in humanity's diplomatic infrastructure who had been paying the most attention to the most rooms for the longest time. The message said, Dreshkin Fleet in Sol Containment Formation, 481 ships. I'm on senior UEDF duty. Need your read on their integration terms framework in the next 30 minutes if possible. The response came in 11 minutes, which was faster than it should have been given that it was 2:30 hours, which meant Lena was either awake or slept very lightly in a way that monitored her message system. The response said, the Dreshkin's 6 successful integrations all had one feature in common. The species that accepted terms had no undisclosed capability. The Dreshkin's offer is calibrated to what they assess. If they assess wrong, the offer is wrong. Tell them what they don't know before they make an offer based on what they think they know. Their terms are negotiable if the negotiation begins from accurate information. Their terms are not negotiable after they've been delivered from a position of assumed certainty. You have about 20 minutes before they transmit. Adiz read this twice. She thought, tell them what they don't know. The third thing she did was talk to Chen Vasquez again. She said, I need the pelagic fleet's presence in the sphere to be detectable. Not all of them. 12. The 12 in the most geographically distributed positions, the ones that give the clearest picture of what the interior coverage actually looks like. I need them to be detectable at the level of a Dreshkin sensor sweep, not obvious, not announcing themselves, but present enough that a focus sweep finds them. Chen Vasquez was quiet for a moment. That is not how the pelagic fleet operates, she said. I know, Adiz said. I'm asking you to make an exception. On what basis? Chen Vasquez said. On the basis that the Dreshkin fleet commander is about to transmit integration terms to a civilization they believe is surrounded, Adiz said. I want them to transmit to a civilization that has just demonstrated it was already inside their formation before they finished entering the system. The conversation that follows is different depending on which version of the situation we're in. She paused. The pelagic fleet was built to change calculations. I'm asking it to change this one before the terms are set. A long pause. 12 vessels, Chen Vasquez said, positioned to suggest distribution through the sphere's interior. Yes. I can have them at detectable emission levels in 8 minutes. Do it, Adiz said. The Dreshkin transmission came at 2:38 hours, which was 21 minutes after the fleet's emergence fast, consistent with a fleet that had done this before and had a practice timeline. It was on the standard compact first contact frequency, which was interesting because it meant the Dreshkin knew the frequency despite having declined compact contact twice, which meant they had been paying attention. The translation system rendered it as, Attention, Sol system inhabitants. The Dreshkin convergence extends the following assessment. Your current defensive capability is insufficient to resist the present formation. We offer terms of voluntary integration into the convergence framework, which provides mutual benefit through shared resources, protection, and commercial access. We invite your senior representative to open communications on these terms. Standard, professional, the voice of a species that had done this 6 times and had a practice script. Adiz opened the channel she had been given. She said, This is Captain Adiz Okonkwo, UEDF Heavy Cruiser Ardennes, currently acting Senior UEDF Officer in the Sol system. I receive your transmission. Before we discuss integration terms, I want to ensure that the Dreshkin Convergence's assessment of our current defensive capability is based on complete information. I am transmitting a sensor data package that may affect your assessment. She transmitted the pelagic fleet's position data. The 12 vessels that Chen Vasquez had brought to detectable emission levels, their positions distributed through the sphere's interior, their coordinates relative to the Dreshkin fleet's own formation. She said, the 12 vessels whose positions I have shared are elements of the UEDF pelagic fleet, which operates throughout the Sol system's deep field. They have been in their current position since before your fleet completed its emergence from fold transit. The Pelagic Fleet has 47 vessels in the Sol system. I have shared the positions of 12 for clarity of assessment. The remaining 35 are at your discretion to locate, which I expect your sensor teams will find interesting. A pause. I also want to note that the 17 spacing gaps in your sphere's southern ecliptic sector, which I assume were not intentional, are currently covered by Pelagic Fleet sensor assets. I mention this not as a threat, but as a contribution to the accurate picture you will need for any discussion of terms. She waited. The pause was 43 seconds, which was a long pause on a military communication channel. She thought about what was happening in that 43 seconds on the Dreshkin flagship. The sensor teams running a focused sweep of the sphere's interior, finding 12 vessels where they had expected to find none, recalibrating their assessments, reporting to their commander, the commander processing the recalibration. She thought about the commander's tactical display, suddenly showing 12 human vessels inside their formation, in positions that indicated they had been there before the formation arrived. She thought, good, now they have the picture. The response came in the voice of a different being, not the transmission officer, a command voice, with the specific quality of authority that commanded voices had across species. It said, Captain Okonkwo, we are conducting a sensor assessment. We will respond when the assessment is complete. Take the time you need, she said. We are not going anywhere. The sensor assessment took 11 minutes. She spent them reviewing the intelligence file again, specifically the section on how Dreshkin integration negotiations proceeded when they proceeded well, which was the section that described 6 successful integrations. The common feature Lena had identified, no undisclosed capability, was present in all 6. The 2 unsuccessful cases were both characterized by the discovery, after terms had been transmitted, of capabilities the Dreshkin had not assessed. In both cases, the discovery had not improved the situation. She was doing the opposite. She was surfacing the undisclosed capability before the terms were set. She was giving the Dreshkin commander the accurate picture, while the picture could still inform the terms rather than complicate them. The command voice came back on the channel. It said, Captain Okonkwo, your sensor data has been assessed. We have 41 of the 47 vessels you described. The remaining 6 are in positions we have not yet resolved. We would like to understand the nature of the fleet you have described. The Pelagic Fleet was developed over 11 years specifically for operation in the Sol system's electromagnetic environment, she said. It is optimized for concealment in the system's deep field, the gravity gradient and electromagnetic interference structure created by Sol's outer system. The fleet's vessels are designed to be difficult to locate in that specific environment. This is their home system. They have been training in it for 11 years. She paused. The Pelagic Fleet is not the full scope of UEDF capability. I mention this not to make your assessment more complicated, but because accurate information produces better outcomes than incomplete information. Another pause, shorter this time. You had a fleet inside our formation before we arrived, the command voice said. The Pelagic Fleet operates throughout the Sol system continuously, she said. It is always deployed. When your fleet arrived, the Pelagic Fleet was in its standard operational positions, which happened to be distributed through the volume your formation now occupies. You knew we were coming. Our intelligence division assessed the Dreshkin convergence as a medium-term strategic concern 18 months ago, she said. We have been tracking your expansion pattern. The Sol system has been on a preparation footing for 14 months. She paused. I want to be honest with you about this because I believe honesty is the foundation of any productive conversation, and because the Dreshkin Convergence's record suggests you have productive conversations when you have accurate information. A longer pause. You studied our record, the command voice said. We study everything, she said. It is a species habit. The pause this time was different from the previous ones. It had the quality of a being deciding something, not recalculating tactics, but making a different kind of decision, the kind that came from receiving more information than expected and choosing what to do with it. The command voice said, "I am Convergence Commander Calvin. I would like to speak with your senior representative." "I am the senior UEDF officer in Saul at present," she said. "Admiral Ferreira is 14 hours from the system. I have diplomatic authorization to conduct preliminary conversations pending the Admiral's return." This was slightly more than strictly accurate. She had communicated authorization to the Saul Command Duty Officer, who had communicated with the Compact Diplomatic Division, which had produced a document in 14 minutes that she had received 4 minutes ago authorizing her to conduct preliminary diplomatic contact in a first contact situation. 14 minutes was fast for a compact authorization document. She suspected Lena had been involved. Calvin said, "You offer a conversation rather than terms." "I do not have the authority to offer terms," she said. "I have the authority to have a conversation. I would suggest that the conversation, given the current state of each other's tactical picture, is more valuable than terms at this point. Terms from either side, in the current situation, would need to be based on an assessment that both of us are still completing." A pause. "A conversation," Calvin said. "About what the situation actually is," she said, "rather than what it appeared to be 40 minutes ago." The pause that followed was the longest yet, 90 seconds, which was long enough that Priya glanced at her with the specific expression of an officer checking whether their captain was still comfortable with the silence. Adiz was comfortable with the silence. The silence was the Dreshkin commander doing what commanders did when a situation had changed shape, working through the new shape and deciding what the new shape meant. She thought about 47 pelagic fleet vessels in the D.P. field. She thought about the sphere's 17 spacing gaps covered by sensor assets. She thought about the intelligence file's description of 6 successful integrations and 2 unsuccessful ones, and the feature that distinguished them. She thought about her grandmother, 40 years ago, building the acoustic picture of a reach fleet from an orbital shadow, patient and specific, and looking for the seam in the formation. She thought, "We are not the same as we were when the reach arrived. We are not the same as we were when the Dreshkin made their assessment 18 months ago. We are the species that keeps building, and what we have built is not only weapons and fleets and relay chains. It is the habit of being ready before the thing arrives that requires readiness." Calvin said, "We will have the conversation." "Good," Adiz said. "I will note that we have a compact diplomatic ambassador available by secure channel. Ambassador Vazik's office has been monitoring the situation and has offered to participate if both parties find it useful. I would suggest it is useful. She has 26 years of compact governance experience, and she knows how to make rooms work." A brief pause. "Ambassador Vazik," Calvin said, "we have heard this name." "Most species have," Adiz said, "eventually." She opened the channel to Lena's office and said, "Ambassador Vazik, we have a conversation to have." Lena's voice on the channel was the voice of an 81-year-old woman who had been awake for at least 40 minutes managing this situation from her end, and who sounded, in that specific way she had always sounded, like someone who had been ready for this room since before the room existed. "I'm here," Lena said. "Good morning, Commander Calvin. I understand we have some tactical information to work through and then some more interesting questions to discuss." The conversation lasted 4 hours. Adiz listened and contributed and deferred to Lena when the governance architecture and compact framework questions arose, which was most of the time, and handled the tactical and military dimensions when they arose, which was less of the time, but important for the same reason that the pelagic fleet's existence had been important. The tactical picture was the foundation on which the conversation stood, and the foundation had to be understood before the conversation could go anywhere. What emerged from 4 hours was not terms and not integration, and not a resolution. What emerged was an agreement to continue the conversation with full diplomatic representation on both sides, a mutual commitment to maintain current fleet positions without hostile action, and a working document that was less than a treaty and more than an acknowledgement. A statement of current facts agreed upon by both parties, including the fact of the pelagic fleet, and the fact of its capabilities, and the fact that humanity had known the Dreshkin were coming and had been preparing. The working document included one line that Lena had drafted and that Adiz had read twice before it was transmitted. Both parties note that the current tactical situation reflects preparation and capability on both sides that was not fully visible to either party before this encounter. Both parties agree that proceeding from the accurate picture is preferable to proceeding from an incomplete one. Both parties signed it. After the conversation ended and the Dreshkin fleet held its position, and Priya had confirmed that all relevant UEDF commands and compact offices had been notified, and the secure channel to Chen Vasquez had confirmed that the pelagic fleet remained at standard operational posture, Adiz sat in the command chair of the Ardennes and thought about what had happened. She thought, we did not defeat them. We did not surrender to them. We gave them the accurate picture before they made a decision based on an inaccurate one. The conversation that followed was the conversation between parties with an accurate picture, and that conversation produced a working document, and the working document was the foundation of what came next. She thought about the sphere, 481 ships in a perfect containment formation. The most sophisticated thing about the sphere was not its size or its geometry. It was the assumption inside it. The assumption that surrounded was a complete description of the situation, that the sphere covered every direction and there was nowhere to go that was not through them. The sphere had not covered the interior. The sphere had been a ring around a space that was already occupied by something the sphere's builders had not known was there. She thought about what her great-great-grandmother Mara had said at the dinner table, according to family memory, in the years after the nebula encounter. The situation is always more complete than it looks. Move to a different position before you decide what it is. 400 IG. HTY-1 ships in a sphere, 47 ships already inside the sphere. The situation was more complete than it had looked. She sent a message to her mother Dara, who was 78 and lived on Colony Ascending 2, and who would receive the message in approximately 18 hours depending on relay traffic. The message said, Dreshkin fleet surrounded Sol this morning. We had them surrounded first. The conversation is underway. The colony ships you designed, the people on them are fine. The ascending corridor is fine. We are fine. She paused and added, tell Elan and Deo that the family tradition of showing up in difficult places and doing the work is apparently genetic. She sent the message. She went back to work. Admiral Ferreira would arrive in 14 hours, and there would be a great deal of briefing and documentation and formal processes to complete, all of which required accurate records, which required that the record of the past 4 hours be precise and complete. She began writing it the way she wrote everything, methodically, from the first sensor alert at 2:17 to the working document at 6:47, with every decision and its basis documented, because the record was the foundation of everything that followed, and incomplete records were the origin of situations that were harder to resolve later. She wrote, at 2:17 hours, the Dreshkin Convergence Fleet emerged in Sol System Containment Formation. At 2:17 hours and 40 seconds, UEDF Sol Senior Duty Officer Captain A. Okonkwo, II, assessed the formation and noted that the pelagic fleet was already deployed in standard operational positions within the formation's interior volume. The tactical assessment was, the Dreshkin fleet had surrounded Sol System. The Sol System's interior assets were in a position to engage the formation from inside. Initial response was to prioritize communication and information sharing over tactical engagement. based on the assessment that the Dreschken Convergence's integration model was negotiation-based, and that the outcome of negotiation was dependent on the accuracy of the information each party held. She stopped. She thought about how to phrase the next sentence. She thought about what the actual tactical assessment had been, the thing she had said to Priya and to Chen Vasquez and to Saul Command in the first 6 minutes. She wrote, "At the time of initial assessment, Captain Okonkwo noted the following to the bridge crew. Good, now we have them surrounded." She looked at this sentence. She considered whether it was the kind of thing that belonged in a formal record. She decided it was. It was accurate. It described the situation correctly. The record was the foundation, and the foundation had to be accurate, and the accurate record of what she had said at 2:17 hours and 40 seconds was what she had said. She left it in. She kept writing.